Imagine being cut out of your own family's Christmas celebration, not because of anything you did wrong, but because of the career you've chosen. What if the job you're passionate about is deemed unworthy by the people who are supposed to love and support you the most? And just when you think you're free from their judgment, they come crawling back to you when their perfect world starts to crumble. Would you help them, or would you stand your ground? Let me take you back to last Christmas, a time that was supposed to be about family, tradition, and love. For me, it was the moment I realized just how far apart I had grown from my own family. My name is Jessica, and I'm a tattoo artist. Not the kind that works on the edgy or trendy designs, but the kind that uses body art to speak volumes about mental health, personal expression, and transformation. I own a small but thriving studio in Los Angeles called Ink and Soul. This isn't just a job to me, it's my calling. But last year, when the holidays rolled around, I was excluded from the Christmas dinner that had always been a centerpiece of my family's life. And no, it wasn't because I was too busy or out of town. It was because of my career, my tattooing. It was deemed too inappropriate for the family's image, too unrefined for the prestigious guests who would be there. It wasn't a small comment or a passing remark. My mother outright told me that my work didn't fit the family's social standing, especially with my sister Charlotte, a neurosurgeon, constantly being held up as the golden child. At that moment, I realized how little my family valued what I did, despite the fact that I had worked my ass off to get where I am. Charlotte, who had always been the shining example of success, didn't help. She was embarrassed by me, embarrassed by my passion. I was a disgrace to them, a lowly tattoo artist in their eyes, and no matter how much success I built, it was never enough to make me worthy of sitting at their table. But here's the kicker. Just when I thought I could walk away, leave them to their perfect world, I get a call that would make me question everything I thought I knew about family, love, and loyalty. Would I turn my back on them completely, or would I help despite the betrayal? The decision that followed changed everything. I've spent most of my life trying to prove something to my family, but honestly, I've always felt like the odd one out. I was born and raised in Bel Air, Los Angeles, a place where success is measured by the size of your bank account and the prestige of your job title. My parents were corporate professionals, high-powered, wealthy, living in a world of lawyers, doctors, and business moguls. They had this perfect picture of what success should look like, and from a young age, I was supposed to fit into that mold. It was never about what I loved doing. It was about what would make me respectable in their eyes. My sister Charlotte, on the other hand, was the one they always dreamed of. Everything came easily to her. She was brilliant, top of her class, excelled at everything she put her mind to, and of course, went on to become a neurosurgeon. In their eyes, Charlotte was everything they could have hoped for. She was everything I wasn't, everything they wanted me to be. I had always felt that pressure, but I tried to live up to it. I did well in school, not as well as Charlotte, but I didn't do terribly. I went through the motions, tried to follow their vision of success, applying to business school, getting decent grades, doing the internships, but there was always this voice inside me telling me that I didn't belong in this world. While my classmates were excited about corporate marketing strategies and financial projections, I was the one doodling sketches in my notebook, thinking about tattoo designs. It wasn't something I could easily explain to my parents, who only saw the world in terms of bank accounts and titles. I remember asking for a toolbox for my 13th birthday, something simple, but to my parents, it was a sign that I was veering off the path they had set for me. My dad, who had his own high-powered law firm, told me, "That's not the kind of thing that will get you into a good college, Jess." The idea of me pursuing a career in something as unconventional as tattooing was unthinkable. Art was never considered a viable path in our family. "You need to do something real," my mom would always say, dismissing any interest I had in creative work. As I grew older, I started getting drawn to tattooing, not just as a hobby, but as something I genuinely wanted to do. I enrolled in an apprenticeship program when I was in my late teens, and soon enough, I found my rhythm. The freedom of expressing myself through ink and creating pieces of art that told someone's story felt so fulfilling. But no matter how successful I became, it never seemed to be enough for my parents. It wasn't the prestigious career they wanted for me. To them, tattooing was a joke, a pastime, not a profession. Despite all of this, I pushed forward. I opened my own studio, Ink and Soul, and it was doing better than I could have ever imagined. Clients were coming in from all walks of life, wanting tattoos that spoke to their personal journeys. I wasn't just doing art, I was helping people express something deeply personal, and it felt incredible. But my success never mattered to my family. They didn't want to see the hours I spent perfecting my craft or the impact I had on my community. They only saw me as their daughter who had wasted her potential. I'd spent so many years trying to prove that I could be successful in their eyes, but eventually I stopped. I realized that their approval was something I would never get, no matter how hard I tried. So I focused on building my own success, on my own terms. Yet, no matter how much I grew, the distance between us kept getting wider. And then Christmas came around. That was the final breaking point. I was about to learn just how much they truly valued me and how far I was willing to go for my own self-respect. Growing up in Bel Air felt like living in a gilded cage. On the outside, everything seemed perfect. We lived in a grand house with marble floors, sprawling lawns, and cars that looked like they belonged in a showroom. My parents were always well-dressed, always in the spotlight at charity galas or high-profile dinners. My mom, Diana, was the perfect corporate wife, always impeccably put together, hosting elegant parties, managing social connections like a pro. My dad, Gregory, was a corporate lawyer, the kind of guy whose name was often mentioned in articles about the city's top firms. He had this air of power, like he ruled the business world in his polished suit. He taught me from an early age that success was measured by your status, by your connections, and, most importantly, by your ability to climb the corporate ladder. My sister Charlotte, being the perfect child in their eyes, fit perfectly into this world. It was like she was born to be the shining star in our family. From day one, she excelled in everything. She aced every test, captained the debate team, was student body president, and eventually went on to become a neurosurgeon. Charlotte was everything my parents wanted me to be: respectable, successful, and perfectly polished. There was always this subtle, almost unspoken competition between us, though it felt more like a comparison, with me constantly falling short. She was the one who was praised at every family gathering, the one everyone was so proud of. And I was the one who fell through the cracks, quietly watching from the sidelines. From a young age, I was aware that I didn't fit into the box my parents had so carefully crafted for their perfect children. As much as I tried to conform, pushing myself to excel in areas they valued, like business and academics, I could never shake the feeling that I was disappointing them. I didn't have the same drive for success as Charlotte. While she studied for hours, securing her future at some prestigious school, I found myself doodling tattoo designs in the margins of my notebooks, thinking about the art I loved. I remember the first time I ever picked up a needle, my heart racing with excitement. It was a small step, just an apprenticeship in a local shop, but it felt like freedom. The world I was stepping into wasn't filled with suits and conferences. It was raw, unfiltered, and real. I was learning to create, to use my hands to make art. But I knew better than to tell my parents about it. Art, especially tattooing, was seen as nothing more than a phase in their eyes. My father was blunt about it. He used to say, "You need to focus on your future, Jessica. You're wasting your time with this nonsense. You should be focused on a real career. Tattoos aren't the kind of thing that gets you into a good college." It's funny now how out of touch they were with what truly made me happy. But back then, I tried to push that part of me down. I tried to be what they wanted, the business-minded, Ivy League-bound daughter. I spent my college years at a well-respected university, studying business and marketing, trying to please my parents while my heart yearned for something different. Every summer internship they arranged for me felt like a soul-crushing experience. It wasn't the work I loved. I remember spending my days at a corporate office, creating spreadsheets and attending meetings where people discussed ways to manipulate consumer behavior, and all I could think about was the tattoo gun that sat, untouched, in my bag. My family didn't get it. They never saw my creative side as something that could ever bring true success. To them, it was unacceptable. The more I tried to fit into their world, the more I felt like an imposter. Charlotte, with her perfect grades and prestigious internships, never seemed to struggle. She always knew exactly what she wanted, and my parents praised her every move. Meanwhile, I struggled to even explain my passion to them without feeling like I was letting them down. But eventually, I stopped trying to be what they wanted me to be. When I finally made the decision to pursue tattooing full-time, to open my own studio, there was no huge family celebration, no congratulations, just silence. My parents were disappointed. Of course they were. I had chosen a path that didn't fit into their perfect vision for me, and they didn't know how to handle it. They couldn't understand why I was choosing a profession they saw as incomplete, low class, and unworthy of their family name. It was hard at first, trying to stand firm against the weight of their expectations. But as I watched my studio grow, as I saw how much my work impacted people, how my tattoos became a way for them to express their deepest fears, hopes, and stories, I realized that my success didn't have to look like theirs. I wasn't going to climb. It was the week before Christmas, and I was busy with a few last-minute bookings at the studio. Clients were excited about getting tattoos for the holidays. Some were commemorating loved ones, others were marking personal milestones. My heart was full as I worked, because this was what I loved. This was the life I had chosen for myself, and I was finally thriving in it. But little did I know, that peaceful moment of satisfaction would soon be shattered. One evening, just after finishing up a long session with a client, I received a call from my mom. Her voice was tight, almost like she was holding something back. "Jessica," she started, "I need to talk to you about Christmas." I immediately thought she was calling to discuss the usual holiday plans, the gifts, the dinner, the usual family drama that always comes with the season. But what she said next left me speechless. "We're not going to have you join us for Christmas this year," she said, her tone casual, like it was just another normal family decision. I paused, waiting for her to continue, but nothing came. It took a second for the words to fully hit me. "What do you mean you're not having me join?" I asked, trying to keep the shock out of my voice. "It's just, well, your career, Jessica. It's not the kind of thing we want at our Christmas dinner this year. We're having some very important guests. Charlotte's colleagues, Robert's family, all people who don't exactly understand tattoos or the kind of work you do. I felt like I had been slapped. It wasn't the first time I'd heard her disapprove of my career, but this was different. They had always made little comments, but this time it was an outright exclusion. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you saying I'm not welcome?" I asked, the words barely coming out. My mom didn't seem to understand the weight of what she was saying. "It's not like that, darling. It's just, well, it's better for everyone this way. It'll be easier for you too. No need to deal with the awkwardness." She didn't even try to make it sound like it was a small thing. She just brushed it off as though it was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. But to me, it was a punch in the gut. It wasn't just about the dinner. It was about the fact that, once again, my career, something that brought me genuine fulfillment, was treated as though it wasn't worthy of being seen in their perfect world. I was always the outsider, the black sheep, but now it felt like I wasn't just being brushed aside, I was being erased. I didn't belong. My passion, my work, was seen as a burden, and for the first time, I realized I had spent my entire life trying to make people who would never understand me happy, especially my family. I didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between us, uncomfortable and heavy. "Mom," I finally said, my voice shaking, "do you even care about what I do? About the work I'm doing? The people I'm helping?" I could feel the tears welling up, but I didn't let them fall. "Why does it always have to be about what's respectable to you? Can't you just see me for who I am, not what you want me to be?" She didn't answer immediately. She just sighed and said, "I understand, Jessica. I really do. But this is just how things are. I don't want to cause you any more stress with this." Her words were soft, but they felt like daggers. After the call ended, I just sat there in silence, my phone pressed against my ear, staring at the empty studio. My world, my life, was real. It was valid, but to them, it was something to be hidden, something to be ashamed of. That night, I found myself thinking back to all the times I had been made to feel like an outsider in my own family, all the moments I had tried to prove that I was worthy, that I was good enough, but never quite measured up to their standards. Now, with this decision, the final line had been drawn. And then, in the midst of my heartbreak, there was the unexpected twist. I received a text from Charlotte. "Hey Jess, Mom said you're not coming to Christmas. I know it's complicated, but you understand, right? It's not about you. It's just the people we're hosting. They won't get it." There it was, in black and white. My sister, the one who had always been my closest family, was now just as embarrassed by me as my parents. There was no room for doubt anymore. She wasn't just going along with the exclusion. After the call with my mom, I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Everything I had been working towards, everything I believed in, seemed to crash down in an instant. I was already feeling disconnected from my family, but this was the final straw. I had spent so many years trying to fit into their expectations, trying to prove that I could be the successful daughter they wanted me to be. And yet, every time I thought I had gotten close, it felt like they would pull away, dismissing what I was doing as irrelevant, as if it was just a phase that would eventually pass. I had always told myself that family was everything, that no matter what happened, they were the ones who would support me. But now, I realize the truth. Family doesn't always support you, especially when you're not living the life they imagined for you. I had spent years being ashamed of my career choice, just trying to make peace with the fact that they didn't get it. But after being excluded from the Christmas dinner and hearing how casually they dismissed my work, something inside me broke. I spent the next few days replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. My mom's voice, dismissive and nonchalant, echoed in my head. And then Charlotte's message came through, cold and impersonal, agreeing with the decision and trying to justify it. Every word felt like a blow. How could my sister, the one person who was supposed to understand me, side with them? How could she disown me like this, just because of my career choice? And that's when it hit me. I had been doing this all wrong. I had been chasing their approval for my entire life, and no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. They would never understand what tattooing meant to me, what it had done for me, and how much it had helped people who felt just as misunderstood as I did. I couldn't keep allowing their shallow definition of success to define me anymore. I didn't make the decision lightly, but I knew what I had to do. It was time to cut the ties. For so long, I had been the one supporting Charlotte, helping with her tuition, encouraging her to chase her dreams of becoming a neurosurgeon. I had been her financial lifeline, even when she didn't show any respect for my career. But now, after everything that had happened, I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep enabling their view of me as a second-class citizen just because I didn't follow the traditional path. I sat down that night after a long shift at the studio and drafted a message to Charlotte. The words came slowly, but they came with clarity. I'm sorry, Charlotte, but I've decided to stop the financial support I've been providing for your medical school. I've been enabling you and our family's toxic attitude toward my career for far too long. I can't keep doing this. You need to figure this out on your own. It's time for me to prioritize my own life, my business, and my happiness. It wasn't an easy thing to write. In fact, it was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I had sacrificed so much for my family. I'd given them everything they wanted, even when it meant losing myself. But now, for the first time in my life, I realized that I needed to take care of me. I couldn't keep living for their expectations. I needed to live for myself, even if that meant facing the consequences of my decision. Once the message was sent, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but there was also an undeniable sense of guilt. This wasn't just about money, it was about family. I had always believed that no matter what, family should come first. But now I was questioning that. Was it really worth sacrificing my self-respect, my happiness, just to be accepted by people who would never fully appreciate me for who I am? The answer was clear. Over the next few days, I kept thinking about my decision. There were moments when doubt crept in. Was this the right thing to do? What if I was wrong? But each time I thought about reaching out to my parents or offering financial help to Charlotte again, I reminded myself of how many times I had allowed them to dictate my life. It was time to stop. I had spent so many years apologizing for being me, for doing something they didn't understand. But now I had to be proud of who I was. My business, my tattoos, the people I worked with, that was what mattered now. That was what brought me true happiness, not their fleeting approval. And the more I thought about it, after sending that message to Charlotte, I felt like I had opened a door I could never close. The days that followed were a blur of emotions: anger, relief, guilt, and everything in between. I had expected Charlotte to be upset, maybe even angry, but the reaction I got was worse than I had imagined. She didn't even try to understand where I was coming from. Instead, she lashed out, calling me selfish, accusing me of abandoning her at the worst possible time. Her words stung, but deep down, I knew I had made the right choice. My family had been manipulating me for years, expecting me to always be the one to pick up the slack when things got tough. And now, it was time for them to figure things out on their own. I had been carrying the weight of their expectations for far too long, and I wasn't going to do it anymore. The next few weeks were filled with radio silence from Charlotte. The holidays came and went, and as much as I tried to focus on my business, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made a mistake. Would things ever go back to normal? Would my family ever see me for who I truly was, not just for the job I did? But then, just when I thought I had let go of the guilt, I got an unexpected call. It was Charlotte. For a split second, I almost didn't pick up. I thought about ignoring her and moving on with my life, but something in me told me to listen. Maybe she had finally realized how much I had sacrificed for her. Maybe this was my chance to make things right. "Hey, Jess." Charlotte's voice was shaky, and I could hear the desperation in it. "I need your help." I froze for a second, trying to process what she was saying. Help? After everything that had happened, she was asking for my help? "Are you serious right now?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. I had no idea what to expect from this conversation, but it definitely wasn't what I was hearing. "I know I've been terrible to you," she continued, "but this is different. I'm in trouble, Jess. I've made a mess of everything. I need you." I felt my heart race as I listened to her explain. Charlotte had gotten herself into a dangerous situation. She had been stalked by someone for weeks now, a client from the hospital, someone she trusted, who had turned violent when she tried to cut off contact. The situation had escalated quickly, and now she was scared for her life. At first, I didn't know what to think. Was she being honest with me, or was this just another way to manipulate me into doing what she wanted? But when she said, "I don't know who else to turn to," something shifted inside me. Despite everything that had happened, I still cared about her. She was my sister, and even after everything, the thought of her being in danger, being hurt, just didn't sit right with me. "I'll help you," I said, without even thinking. "Where are you? I'll be there." The moment I said it, I felt a rush of emotions. Anger, resentment, and yet compassion. It felt like I was throwing myself back into the same toxic dynamic that I had fought so hard to break free from. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't doing it because I had to. I was doing it because I wanted to. I wanted to help her, but more than that, I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable of setting boundaries and still showing love when it mattered most. I immediately left the studio and drove to her place. As I got closer, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The last time I had been here, it felt like nothing could ever change. My family was set in their ways, and I was nothing more than a disappointment. But now, I was standing at the edge of something completely new. I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all my family, define my worth anymore. This moment was about me choosing what was best for me, not about what they thought was best. When I walked into Charlotte's apartment, she was sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She didn't look like the powerful, confident woman I had once admired. She looked vulnerable, and for the first time, I saw her as just a human being, someone who had her own fears and weaknesses, just like me. "I'm sorry, Jess," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I should have listened to you. I was wrong about everything." I didn't respond right away. I just sat beside her, taking in what she said. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her that she didn't deserve my help, that after everything she had done to her, she had no right to ask for anything. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, knew that this was a moment where I had the chance to show compassion without losing myself in the process. Let's just figure this out, okay? Helping Charlotte that night, despite everything that had happened between us, was a turning point for me. I don't think I fully understood it at the time, but that act of reaching out, despite the years of hurt, marked the beginning of a profound shift in how I saw myself and my relationship with my family. It wasn't just about helping my sister anymore, it was about helping myself. I had always been there for others, especially Charlotte, but I realized that true strength isn't just about carrying the weight for everyone else. It's about having the courage to stand tall, set boundaries, and still show up when it matters. In the days that followed, I felt this incredible sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Sure, the situation with Charlotte wasn't resolved overnight, and I still had to process a lot of anger and disappointment about how my family treated me, but I knew I had made the right decision. I didn't need their approval to feel successful, and I didn't need to justify my career or my life to anyone anymore. For the first time, I was living for me, not for them, not for anyone else. The tattoo studio, Ink and Soul, was doing better than ever. The word was spreading about the meaningful work we did there. I had started to attract clients who weren't just looking for ink, they were looking for a personal connection, a way to express something that mattered deeply to them. It wasn't just about tattoos anymore, it was about creating art that had meaning and purpose. But success wasn't just about growing my business, it was about growing as a person. I had spent so much time hiding parts of myself to fit into a mold that didn't suit me, but now I was embracing all of it. I didn't care if my career didn't match my parents' version of success. It was my life, my passion, and my truth. Every design I created, every tattoo I did, felt like a reaffirmation of my choice to live authentically. I began to realize how much I had allowed my family to shape my self-worth. For so long, I had let their opinions control how I felt about myself. I had doubted my abilities and believed that I wasn't worthy of success because they couldn't see the value in what I did. But now I was starting to see that their validation didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the people who walked into my studio, who saw the value in my work and the community I was building around me. There were still moments of doubt, of course there were. I had spent years trying to please them, to live up to an image of success that wasn't mine. But the more I worked, the more I spent time focusing on my goals and my future, the more I realized that I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be. I was successful not because of what my family thought of me, but because I had worked hard for it, and I was proud of that. I also began to see my own growth in other ways. I started taking on more leadership roles within my industry, mentoring young artists who were just starting out. I shared my journey with them, not just about how I got my business off the ground, but about how to stay true to yourself in an industry that often tries to box you in. I shared the lessons I had learned, the importance of setting boundaries, of choosing yourself, and of embracing your own story. And as I shared my experiences, I realized that my story had the power to inspire others. It wasn't just about tattoos anymore. It was about showing people that they too could build their lives on their own terms, no matter what anyone else thought. As the months passed, I kept moving forward. My relationship with my family remained strained, but I had come to terms with that. I knew that they weren't going to change overnight. They might never understand my path, but that didn't mean I had to stop living my truth. I didn't need their approval to feel like I was doing the right thing. I had found a new family, my chosen family, people who saw me for who I truly was and who valued me for my authenticity. And that was enough. But the real victory wasn't just about the business or the relationships I was building. It was about owning my power. I had spent so many years being afraid of rejection, afraid of not living up to their standards. But now I was walking through the world with my head held high, knowing that I was enough, just as I was. And then, one day, I received an unexpected message from my mom. It was simple, just a text that said, "I saw your studio featured in a local article. Congratulations, Jessica. I'm proud of you." For a moment, I felt a rush of emotion, but it wasn't the validation I thought I had been waiting for. It was relief, because it had been a few months since I had cut off financial support for Charlotte, and life seemed to settle into a new rhythm. My business was thriving. Ink and Soul was gaining recognition, and I was finally beginning to feel the weight of my decision lifting. But then, as it always seems to happen, life threw another curveball my way. It was the week of Thanksgiving, and as usual, I was busy in the studio, preparing for a series of appointments and finalizing some art pieces for my clients. There was a quiet hum of satisfaction in the air as I worked, surrounded by the familiar smell of ink and the sound of the tattoo gun buzzing. It was my sanctuary, a place where I felt truly myself, free from the expectations of others, focused solely on my art. But then, just as I was about to start a new piece, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" I said, trying to focus despite the nervous flutter in my chest. "Jessica, it's Mom." My mother's voice came through, and I immediately felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, and every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of conversation we were going to have. "Hi, Mom," I said, cautiously, bracing myself for whatever was coming next. "I know we haven't talked much lately," she began, her voice softer than usual. "And I know things have been complicated, but I need to talk to you. Your father and I were talking, and we wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner this year." My heart dropped, and for a second, I couldn't speak. Was this a trick? After everything that had happened? After being excluded last year? After all the hurtful words and actions? Now they wanted me back? It felt like they were trying to rewrite history, like I could just walk back into their perfect world and everything would be fine. I took a deep breath and pushed the anger down. "I'm not sure what you want me to say, Mom," I said slowly. "After the way I was treated last year, I don't think I can just forget about it." I could hear her sigh on the other end of the line. "I know we've all made mistakes," she said quietly, "but things have changed. Your father and we've been talking, and we realized we've been unfair to you. We know we should have supported you more. We should have been there for you, Jess, not just for your sister, but for you too. You deserve more than what we gave you." Her words were like a double-edged sword. Part of me wanted to believe her, to finally hear the apology I had waited for years. But another part of me couldn't help but feel that this was just another attempt to placate me, to bring me back into the fold because they realized they had pushed me too far away. I took a deep breath and pushed the anger down. "I appreciate you saying that, Mom," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But actions speak louder than words. You didn't respect my career, and now you're asking me to just walk back into that world like nothing ever happened?" There was a long pause, and I could almost hear my mother struggling to find the right words. "We didn't know how much it meant to you, but we see it now, Jess. We see what you've built with your own hands, and we're proud of you. We're proud of what you've accomplished. Please, just come home for Thanksgiving. We want to make it right." I didn't respond right away. I was torn. My entire life, I had been chasing their approval, trying to fit into their world. But had I finally learned that I didn't need that approval to be happy, to be successful? I thought about everything I had built for myself, the studio, the clients who trusted me, the sense of fulfillment I had from my work. I thought about the people who truly valued me for who I was, not for the career I chose. And in that moment, I realized something important. I had already made peace with who I was, with or without their acceptance. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, my voice steady. But I can't come back into that world. I've worked too hard to build a life that's my own. I don't think I'm ready to let you guys back in. Not yet. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could hear her trying to hold back tears. I understand, Jessica, she said quietly, but I want you to know we're sorry. We've been wrong, and we've hurt you. We just want to be a family again. We love you, Jess. I love you too, Mom, I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. But I have to do this for me. I can't keep chasing after approval that isn't mine to get. As I hung up the phone, I felt this rush of clarity wash over me. For so long, I had thought that if I just did. After the conversation with my mom, I spent the next few days in a strange state of calm. It wasn't peace exactly, but more like a quiet realization that I was finally being honest with myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine. I wasn't chasing after the approval of people who had never truly understood me. I was finally beginning to accept myself for who I was, without needing anyone else's validation. The days following Thanksgiving were filled with moments of reflection. I spent time in the studio, pouring my energy into my work, and I felt centered in a way I hadn't before. I no longer felt the weight of my family's expectations hanging over me. There were still occasional thoughts of regret, still moments when I questioned whether I'd done the right thing by cutting ties with my family, but deep down, I knew that I had made the only choice that would allow me to move forward. And then something unexpected happened. A week after the phone call with my mom, I received a message from Charlotte. It wasn't the cold, impersonal text I had received before. This one was different. Jess, she started, I know things have been messed up between us, and I don't blame you for how you feel. I've been thinking a lot, and I realize now just how wrong I've been. I was a coward, and I'm so sorry. I want to make it right, if you'll let me. Reading those words, I felt a rush of emotions. Anger, relief, confusion, but also something else, hope. Could it be that my sister, the person who had hurt me the most, was finally seeing the damage she had done? Could she really understand how much her words and actions had affected me? I took a deep breath and put my phone down for a moment. I needed to think. For so long, I had held on to the idea that family was everything, that blood would always be thicker than water. But now I wasn't sure anymore. I had spent years sacrificing myself for their approval, only to end up feeling alone and misunderstood. But now, I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice anymore. I texted Charlotte back, telling her that I needed time to process everything, but that I was open to talking. Forgiveness wasn't something I was ready to give just yet, but I knew that I couldn't carry resentment forever. I needed to heal, and that meant being open to the possibility of rebuilding something, if it was worth it. A few weeks later, Charlotte reached out again. This time, we had a long conversation, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly communicating. She apologized, genuinely and deeply. She admitted her mistakes and acknowledged the ways in which she had hurt me, not just with her words, but with her actions, by choosing to side with our parents and dismissing my dreams. But more importantly, she asked if I was willing to try again, to build something between us. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't a quick fix. We both had a lot of emotional healing to do. But in that moment, I realized that family could still have a place in my life, on my terms. I didn't need their approval to feel like I was enough. I didn't need to seek their permission to live my life, but I could still open my heart to the possibility of reconciliation. As for my parents, the relationship with them didn't change overnight. I wasn't ready to just let go of the years of hurt and disappointment, but I was ready to stop chasing their approval. It was a slow process, more like a dance than a revolution, but it was moving in the right direction. I wasn't going to beg for their acceptance anymore. Instead, I was going to keep living my truth, keep building my success, and let them come to me if they were ready. I would not compromise who I was for anyone. The biggest realization I had in all of this was that self-acceptance isn't a destination, it's a process. It's about constantly reminding yourself that you are enough, regardless of who sees it or not. It's about choosing yourself over the need for others' approval, even when it's hard. And most importantly, it's about knowing that you don't need anyone's validation to be proud of who you are. I had spent too many years trying to be something I wasn't, but now I was embracing the person I had always been, and that was worth more than anything I had ever sought from my family. As I look back on everything that's happened, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the lessons I've learned along the way. It's strange to think that the most painful experiences were also the most transformative. At one point, I thought my family's approval was the only thing that mattered. I thought that if I could just fit into their mold, everything would be okay. But in reality, what I needed most was to accept myself, to understand that I didn't need anyone else's validation to know that I was on the right path. I still love my family, I always will. They may not fully understand my choices, and they may never fully accept the path I've chosen, but that doesn't change the love I have for them. What's changed is how I view myself, and how I now understand that I can love and care for them without losing my own identity in the process. That's the beauty of family, right? We don't have to agree on everything, but at the end of the day, we're all just trying to find our way. Sometimes that means stepping away from the expectations placed on us and deciding to live for ourselves. It means letting go of the need to please others and instead focusing on what makes us feel whole, what brings us joy and purpose. And for me, that meant letting go of the burden of trying to live up to my family's idea of success and embracing the success I had built on my own terms. I know I'm not the only one who has struggled with the pressure of family expectations. So many of us feel like we have to mold ourselves into someone else's version of perfect just to feel loved. But the truth is, you are enough, just as you are. You don't need anyone else's approval to feel worthy or to pursue the life you've always wanted. The key is to realize that your happiness comes from within, not from meeting the expectations of others. If you're someone who's facing a similar situation, if you've been torn between your own dreams and what others expect of you, I want to remind you, you are not alone. It's okay to follow your own path, even if it means stepping away from those who don't understand. It's okay to be true to yourself. Your worth is not defined by anyone else's standards. I hope my story has resonated with you and that it serves as a reminder that you have the power to take control of your life. You have the strength to stand up for yourself and make choices that align with your heart, even when it's difficult. If you found inspiration in my journey, please don't forget to share this video with others who might need to hear it. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, where we embrace our own truths and build lives we're proud of. Remember, the bravest thing you can do is honor your own worth, even when it's hard. Keep living authentically and keep choosing yourself. The world needs you to be exactly who you are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.